The religious right and social conservatives continue to introduce legislation to limit birth control access and emergency contraception, as well as attempting to remove abortion access and abortion rights in the United States. They attack Planned Parenthood at every possible occasion. We must fight them at every step of the way. Many members of such groups are religious fanatics and or self-serving, opportunistic politicians. We have seen the horrors perpetrated by religious zealotry from the time of the Christian Inquisition to the present-day Middle East theocracies. Such injustices occur when religion is allowed to run rampant and impose its beliefs on all people. The secular community must fight them in court, in the press, on the web, and try them in the court of public opinion. Let us expose their cruelty, their hypocrisy, and their attempts to take the United States back to the Middle Ages. If we stand firm, we shall continue to win this battle and preserve sexual freedom and the freedom to choose for future generations. We must continue to assert our legislative rights and petition our lawmakers to reject draconian attempts to derail family planning and abortion rights. Women are not breeders or receptacles, nor are children property who are brought into the world by unwilling and often abusive parents. The religious would have us believe the world would be better if their backward and vicious policies were put into effect. We only need to point to countries that restrict birth control and abortion to see the misery, need, and violence that ensues under such policies. Let us not allow such fanatical, hysterical, and erroneous laws to ever enter our society again. Religion must be restrained, and it is the responsibility of our secular society to keep faith-based policies from ever becoming the law of our United States. Thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Here, here. Here,
Well, I just wondered what they were, because I wouldn't want to...
Well, that we can bring up after the
already got.
20-minute discussion, okay? Follow through on that.
I thought she was taking a snack break.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jim.
But you only have to go over to Woodward Avenue and down to about 12 Mile in Woodward, and you will come to a beautiful church sitting in the left, if you're going south, on the left-hand corner. And in the springtime, around Easter, the Committee Against Abortion from the church, with about 1,000 members, will station themselves along Woodward Avenue with about, what was it, Mary? We guessed about 500 to 1,000 little white crosses.
Yeah.
And they stick them in the easement, in the
That is a
grass, in the
horrible
easement,
sight.
up and down Woodward Avenue, all the way from Royal Oak at 11 Mile, all the way up to the shores of Birmingham. And they stand there and hold anti-abortion signs and save the children, the usual kind of stuff.
You realize every time I see that, I think, oh my gosh, thank goodness we don't have that many extra people to deal with.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, thanks for pointing out what a great thing this is that we can do this.
So each one represents an abortion in
Yeah.
a given
Yeah.
year, or since the beginning
No,
of
the
time?
I'm sure
crosses
they just
symbolize
put 'em all in there.
the number of abortions going on.
In a year.
We have a church
I
in,
doubt it's
in
mathematical.
Yeah, I was
But
just going to
it's,
say.
it's,
It's probably no
each,
rules.
each
Well,
cross is
Point
worth,
that has a
each
little
cross is worth
yard.
1,000 abortions.
Oh, 1,000
Yeah,
abortions.
each
Wow.
cross is worth 1,000 abortions. Just meditate on that when you're driving up and down Woodward Avenue.
Like I said, I'm like, thank goodness we don't have all those
Meditate
extra people
on
to
it.
deal with.
So Mary, you
There's some
claim though
recordings of babies crying while you're driving by.
that the churches really didn't say that an abortion at, conception, if that was possible, was a sin. They never said that
No,
until...
it gets very complex. I have a future lecture on the church and medieval and Renaissance marriage, which is kind of it's interesting to me anyway. But the church faltered a long time. A lot of their theologians argued on this issue.
So
Like
this-
when was abortion really wrong, and then they will said yes, but a lot of it was the quickening.
So would you say that it was really the backlash against abortion that pushed it to the conception being a sin?
No,
Abortion
I
at
think what
conception.
happened was, a lot of it was, they realized that life began earlier.
Well, they must have
No,
known.
they didn't, they really
Yeah.
didn't know, they didn't think that
The word quickening. I
they
think,
thought, yeah, when
yeah.
the mother
Literally.
felt the child moving in the womb, they thought that's when the child
The
got
soul.
a soul.
And before then, it was inanimate. It was.
Yeah, kind of floating around.
was-
They, they were very imprecise. They
Yeah.
didn't really
They
understand.
didn't
So this,
understand biology.
yeah, this theologian would say, oh no, this is a terrible sin. The other one would kind of hedge. What's interesting, I found out when I was researching the thing, is that women knew a lot of the herbs and a lot of the things to take, and they were even in some of the old volumes that were even in monks' libraries and things. And Hildegard of Bingen, one of the abbesses that's so well known, for her music and this and that, she had lists of things, and they would talk about it as aiding, menstruation coming on. They didn't call it abortion or.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very clever, but they were it was enormously how sophisticated they were.
I thought the big portion of the backlash against abortion wasn't because I didn't think it started with any protecting a child. I thought it started with because there were so many women that were getting sick, or like any surgical procedure back then, it was
Not
dangerous.
really, no, it was really, like I gave the reasons, really. It wasn't so much that women were, actually surgical abortions were a lot safer back then as they are now, than all that junk that those poor women were taking.
Well, the poison I thought was one of the backlashes against the
Yeah,
But no, that was described in the Bible in Numbers.
but the church lately has been taking a very weird position. It's not, dogma yet, but now they're saying that even if there isn't a soul at the moment of conception, which they've been claiming, at the moment that, the seed and the thing,
They got like a soul meter or something? they can
Sperm
track?
and egg
No,
meat.
they're saying that if the soul isn't at that moment, so what? They're saying that,
It's the vessel
if-
for the soul,
if you're
so close
aborting,
enough.
if you're aborting the child, like, right after that, then that child will never have a soul, and that's just as bad. So they've kind of been covering all their tracks lately.
But
I've been
the-
studying on the soul, and I've come across this, and I said, oh my God, they have a newsstand.
But they do have the recipe for an abortion in the Bible.
I think you're right. What, can you read?
Numbers 5, verses 11 to 31. It says, if a guy suspects his wife is cheating, he just has to suspect it. She doesn't have to actually cheat.
Well, of course.
Then she's to go to the temple, and the preacher will mix up a bitter drink, and she has to drink it. And if she was cheating, the baby will abort, and all her future babies will also
Wow.
die. As they put it, her loins will rot. So,
So it's
Wow.
sort of like the
but
test
if
of
she's
witchcraft.
innocent, the baby will be born healthy. But she's still drinking poison. I mean, so probably if she's innocent, she's willingly drinking this and saying, well, I'll be fine, but that's a witch trial thing. But then,
Yeah,
that's
it's
the
like a witch
recipe
trial.
for an abortion.
What's interesting
in
is that, the Christian conservatives are so against, abortion, and yet, it's performed in the Bible.
Yeah. Tells you how.
Selective interpretation.
As usual.
Well, in the example that you're giving, it's serving the greater purpose, right? It's serving the man is in charge of the woman, and so he's getting to enforce something, as opposed to the woman choosing it on her own, right? That's the bad
Reproducible
part.
property.
Right. That's the
Maybe
bad part.
that's it. Yeah,
That's why-
if the man's doing it, it's
Right.
okay.
If the man's doing it to his property, that's okay.
Yeah,
The good old
it's a
days.
good point, that's a good point.
Right. What they object to is the women choosing on their own.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can see why that's a problem.
Lucifer the Light Bearer, was that the name of the publication or was that the man's name?
No, that was the name of the publication. He changed it from.
I got confused for a minute too. Yeah,
Oh, I'm
okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
And does this bear any semblance to the modern day Satanic Temple movement?
No, but
Because
I love the Satanic Temple.
But he was drawing kind of the same conclusion, that Lucifer was the bearer of knowledge.
Well, he was being facetious.
But he was Yeah,
You
so
know, he
it's
was their
satanic
first
temple.
science teacher. He was baiting the
Yeah,
religious when he said that.
but
But
that
the
is what,
temple is really remarkable. You know that football coach, I think in Florida, I can't remember. They ordered him not to pray at the football things, and he keeps praying. And I guess the Satanic Temple now is going to ask to give invocations since the coach is. So that should put a stop to it. They're quite wonderful, the things that they do.
yeah, well,
You know,
they
when
have
the
that
religious
same-
have been passing out things at schools, they say that they can pass out their material.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, nobody's allowed to pass anything out. They're really doing a better job than the secular community, as I hate to say.
You know, I love that statement you said that in the Bible, God has doomed mankind to ignorance.
Yeah,
And Satan was the first
yeah.
science
teacher,
teacher.
he was being facetious. He was really, really aggravating the religious at that time.
You mentioned that
Good T-shirt.
a woman was prosecuted for living in sin, living without marriage.
Right.
Was there actually a law that said you could not live with a member of the opposite sex, or was
I
it?
believe that there were at that time.
Is that how the common law of marriage came into being? I mean,
Right, yeah, and then eventually the common law marriage became, legal.
it was a way of
Right.
fixing that
Yeah,
problem.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. But they would not accept the fact that, Lillian Harmon and her spouse, had just exchanged vows with their friends there. They refused any legal kind of, binding.
Back to our topic. You mentioned the vaginal syringe without defining what that is, or even what it was for. What was the vaginal
Yeah,
syringe?
it's a little syringe, go ahead, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, you can explain. You're doing
For
good.
abortion or for what?
It washes out a lot of the sperm and also pulls it.
So birth
too.
control.
First, you're basically douching and
You're
then sucking it
douching, and then you
out.
suck it out.
Yeah.
Well, it's not putting a spermicide in there and then
No. Well, whatever
Well,
they
yeah,
were.
yeah,
good.
yes,
Yeah.
beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Depending on what they defined as a spermicide,
Yeah.
and I don't know if what they were defining as a
actually, I don't know
spermicide
what
was.
they used.
apple cider
Yeah.
vinegar or something.
Right. I mean, was it
Probably.
truly a spermicide, or were they hoping it? I don't know.
See, a lot of these douches and syringes and things, they hoped it was.
Right.
Even the doctors.
Well, I'm
not all
really
their-
glad
their
that they
recipes were effective.
I'm glad that
Really
they fought
sad.
through all these issues because now we have the concept of sponge-worthiness,
Oh, from
which is
Seinfeld.
it's
I
up to the
remember
woman.
that.
See, she's the one who had. But something that really was striking about this guy, Comstock. Of course, he's a zealot. He's a fanatic, and he was against sex more or less.
Obviously.
And his whole life was dedicated to sex.
Yeah, well,
And
that's,
if it's possible for anyone to think about sex more
Yeah.
than
Right.
that, I don't know.
Good
And,
point.
and if he wasn't having sex,
It's
then he was dating a succubus somewhere.
I mean, it's like the politicians who pass the restrictive laws and then they get caught in the restaurant
Oh.
with the
Right.
airport
Isn't that
or the
awful?
page or something. Yeah.
And he also, and the other thing he said was, these young men were involved in the YMCA. This guy must be turning over in his grave whenever he hears that song nowadays.
which one?
YMCA.
Oh.
It's about gay guys,
Right,
right? I mean,
Oh, okay.
Which a lot of
the
people
village
still don't
people.
know.
Yeah, I didn't know that actually.
And it's where the gay men would go to hook up, right? If they wanted,
Yep.
if they were out of town and they wanted to meet other
Yeah.
gay men, they'd go to the YMCA.
Oh, so it's really its
Everything-
purpose is for
everything
the
Good man
is
man.
is a place you can go.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Oh,
tongue in,
that's
the song itself was kind of tongue in cheek, but
Still,
yes, that
oh,
was the
that's just
reputation.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
You mentioned that the doctors began to cooperate with women who wanted birth control. So
Uh-huh.
I have to ask, what was the doctor's motivation for helping? Was it just because the profession of being a physician started to become more popular, more recognized as a legitimate profession, or was it more that they wanted to control women themselves?
I don't think that they really wanted to control women themselves so much. I think the compassionate ones saw the misery.
Look,
Women having child after child, and look at Sanger's mother, 11 children and 7 miscarriages. And that's incredible.
I don't think it's fair to assume too that the husbands weren't supporting birth control themselves in a lot of
Some of
instances.
them were, some of them were, and some of them weren't.
I mean, I'm sure some of them weren't. I'm sure some of it was women trying to get away
Well,
from
think
that.
of trying to support.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can't tell me that there wasn't a single husband out there
Oh,
that
no.
wasn't like, oh my gosh, hon, we've got to figure out a way to stop
No,
having
a lot
babies.
of people, just,
Because I mean that problem has been there for centuries, right? Women were getting pregnant all the time, right? And so what was it about the late 19th century that suddenly said, "Oh, we've got a problem on our hands"? Was it that actually women were living longer, or they were surviving these childbirths
That's a good
because of the medicine that was now becoming popular?
that's a good point.
Something
I think
else
people
had
were just
changed.
becoming a little bit more enlightened,
Yeah.
don't you think?
Didn't women get voices around then too?
Yeah.
I mean, they.
Yeah. Because, the suffragettes were going and things like that, it became like ridiculous. And then those tenements that, Sanger worked in where, had the immigrants crowded in
Yeah.
and child after child. There was a lot of suffering, and I think people became aware of it.
So was it population control was another big concern that you didn't
Yes.
mention
Yes,
directly?
it was. Yes, it was.
That they were afraid of
not
an
a
explosion.
benevolent,
Yeah,
movement.
and that repeated again later, when the time the birth control pill
Yeah.
came out, is that, we have to control the population because we're gonna get out of control,
Exactly.
we're gonna run out of resources.
Exactly. Well, the black community, some of it, although I think that they've changing a little bit, but they were like very leery of abortion rights for a long time
Yeah.
because they felt that, that people wanted to like restrict.
The eugenics again.
So eugenics, yeah.
Legacy.
And so today, if you go on the pro-life sites, Margaret Sanger is really slammed as a eugenicist,
Yeah.
that was her
I thought
real.
she
And it's
was,
really
though.
unfair. She was, but she wasn't one of these, what we call a positive eugenicist.
You mentioned that, and I wrote that down in my notes as a thing. Can you say again the difference? You said negative eugenics, and I was like,
Yeah, well, because what they were, they really wanted to keep people, healthy and happy. So they wanted to keep the mothers and the children healthy. They didn't really want to like tinker around with their genes, and they didn't believe that there was a superior race and we should keep the white people and the Protestant,
but I still don't get.
It's voluntary,
negative.
she wanted
Yeah.
voluntary
Yeah.
And that's positive.
control, not the government forcing people to be
You'll
sterilized.
see in my next lecture the difference.
The
Okay.
religious
All right.
right would say, oh no, she wanted to force people not to have children.
Yeah,
It's kind of like China, would be an example.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, that's.
Oh,
a
I
good
see. So
example.
she wasn't. Her goal behind it was not to create some master race through
No.
all these techniques.
No.
Her goal was the opposite, which was I still don't get the negative. I get the positive.
Voluntary, motherhood and voluntary
How is that eugenics? Though?
childbearing. Well, because like she was for healthy, happier people and birth control in general. I mean, a limitation of families and everything.
She saw that as somehow improving the gene pool.
Yeah,
Okay.
they really did.
If we get to choose and
Right.
have happy, then
Yeah.
we would have the gene pool would improve
Yeah,
because
they
everybody
actually
would
thought it
okay.
would be a more intelligent child
So,
and what have you. That's
still
not-
wrong, but not-
wrong, but
Not as
well-meaning,
nefarious. Right.
very well
Okay.
meaning.
Okay.
Yeah, I know they slam her all the time, but they love to change everything around and
Well, I didn't know.
tinker with-
I didn't know that distinction. So.
I mean,
that's
look what they're
interesting.
doing with Planned Parenthood
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
whatever.
It's
That's
quite insane. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's all
only
insane.
3% of Planned Parenthood.
Oh, Planned Parenthood walked into that.
Yeah, I know they walked into it, but still, I mean, 3% of their work is abortion. It's
Yeah.
just like, I wonder sometimes with
Right.
the Comstock things, how easily they walked into his traps.
Yeah.
Did he go after the motion picture industry that was just beginning, when people were actually filming people naked? Did he try?
No, he didn't do much there, but there was another group there. When I did my class on film noir, I found out, how much they started to crack down the production codes and what have you.
Because having a naked photograph was actually very valuable. If
Yeah.
you could buy a photograph at that time.
Well, that was the kind of thing that he was against, but he didn't go after motion picture industry in general. He was after the mailing things through the mail. That was his big deal.
So he didn't mind the novel playing cards.
Oh, well, yeah, anything like
That was
that.
just more
Yeah.
pictures, right?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that they would put on display a lot of times.
Now, would you characterize what defeated him in the end is that it seemed like he was infringing upon freedom of speech?
Yeah, it would be like the McCarthy.
That's
thing.
all I could think of.
I think he was challenging the people who really empower, the other judges.
That's part of the problem too, that's a good point,
mainstream,
Norm. That is a good point.
judiciary, that
That
he
is a good
It
point.
did
was
sound like that, yes.
becoming
Yeah,
law
yeah.
unto
Right,
himself,
right.
and they did
Yeah.
not like
Right,
that.
ultimately, right, the people who are in charge aren't gonna like that.
It's
Yeah.
not because of free speech.
Right.
Well, I think
Because
some
they're-
You're
I
usurping
think some
my
of the rules
role.
are
Right,
free speech
exactly.
though. But I think, yeah, it's partly free speech, but partly, if they're like McCarthy, I think he was getting too
Big for his
powerful,
britches, yeah.
Too big for his britches,
Yeah.
you know.
Because
It's
this
time
is
for a
very
takedown.
unusual. You say that he was granted special status by the post office
Special power,
Right.
to
yeah,
arrest people.
arrest, yeah.
Where else
That's
in our government
amazing.
have we ever had something like that, where you could appoint like a dictator?
That's
you know?
why we have to be
I'm sure we
always
could
on our
find
guard.
some, but that was.
Well, I don't think you'll find them. They're the quiet divisions of the government.
He wasn't that
The
quiet.
X-Files.
Did you find any connection between John Harvey Kellogg and Comstock?
Good question.
No, but
Good
the connection, you'll see John Harvey Kellogg in my next lecture,
Oh, I
and
love John Harvey
eugenics.
Kellogg.
Oh, you do? Okay, we should talk.
He's a
He's the
nutcase
worst.
in
He's
the
the
worst way, but he's
Yeah.
hilarious. I
He's
mean, his
hilarious.
beliefs were.
What did he
Did you know all of his equipment was on the Titanic?
Well, we're getting off
Sorry.
topic, unfortunately, but I
The
would like
next
to talk more
lecture,
about that.
we will
We're gonna do
cover
that.
Kellogg and eugenics, and of course, he was a big
Well, his
proponent of
sex,
circumcision
and this ties
and
to
against
sex. He
Circumcision.
was very anti-sex, and so I wondered if because they were of the same time period.
No,
Yes.
no, he did his own little thing in his own little
No,
area.
but Comstock and John Harvey.
1888.
They never, as far as I know, I should say I've never read a biography of Kellogg, so I'm not sure, but I have not come across him being prominent.
Oh, I don't think he was prominent, but I think he supported Comstock's. He was
Oh,
a
I wouldn't be
supporter of
surprised,
Comstock.
yeah,
That's
he was
what
against sex, yeah.
Yeah.
Were any of these free love radicals?
Free radicals.
Sorry.
I'm just thinking nutrition now.
Were any of them, were they engaged in studying sex itself? Did they start to like ask questions about the scientific study of sex?
Oh, yeah, it wasn't very scientific back then, but yeah, they
But-
were printing articles and things, yeah. You know, they
Because-
felt that they were being very scientific, and actually for the time, they probably were.
You know, there must have been this enormous gap in what they knew,
Yeah.
you know, what we know
Yeah.
scientifically. So and that's why I'm curious
But
what
they
you came
began,
across.
you know, you can print up what you know, I mean, there's gonna be a big gap.
But it
from
was
what
folk. It was all folk wisdom. I mean, what
Well,
did
not
they
all of
know?
it was folk wisdom, people were starting to find out, you know, how the human body worked and how, you know, sexual relations worked and et cetera, you know, they knew more than say that in medieval or Renaissance times.
That you could only get pregnant in a certain period of the month. Maybe?
Right, yeah, they started, well, I think that they knew more than we realized back in the day, back in the Renaissance. From what I've been studying, they knew a lot more than we
We
thought.
kind of went through a dark ages of that
Yeah.
Puritanism.
I was quite amazed
And
when I
then-
started
yeah.
researching it, how much
Oh.
women knew, especially women. It almost seemed like a woman's kind of like knowledge. And some of it was passed just word of mouth, and some of it was written down. Quite
Well, I don't think
amazing.
our brains have really changed that far since the Renaissance. I mean, they had the same capabilities that we have.
Yeah.
Their information may not have been as high quality.
That's it, yeah.
For as
Well-
long as
Well,
there's-
and the idea of doing scientific exploration wasn't as common,
No,
you know.
no.
No, I think they probably were just
But
flat
the
out
sex
wrong about a
radicals
lot
thought
of
that
things.
they were
Wives'
being
tales?
quite scientific. You see those doctors that were putting out those pamphlets and things, they were being as scientific as they knew how to be at that time.
Yeah, but I'm sure I could pull things where they were just ridiculously wrong about, you know, the circumcision example that you know that was going to prevent disease, for example.
Well, sure.
That masturbation was going to cause insanity.
Right,
These are
right.
things that straight out of the 19th century pseudoscience of, you know, they were doctors who were
Mhm.
saying these sort of things that were just bogus.
Well, I mean, people are gonna be laughing at a lot of our opinions and our scientific pronouncements in
Yeah,
100
hopefully it's a little better,
Yeah,
but
you know,
maybe.
They'll say, oh, really? They really believe that? You know?
Right. Well, certainly some of the things about nutrition will be in that category. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Nutrition,
Oh, it's
yeah.
become so ridiculous.
Sleeper, huh?
But my sister told me that my grandmother believed that there was something you could drink to prevent a pregnancy.
She
That's
had
what
learned that.
That was folk wisdom from the
There,
Eastern
there
Europe.
were things,
Well, I know one
there
thing.
were drugs that helped bring on, abortions.
One thing you can drink if you don't want to get pregnant is not alcohol.
Thank you for that.
Yes, well,
That's a big help, Greg. Thank you.
You're welcome. You can use that.
I don't know, at my age, I'm so worried.
Which brings us back to one of the birth control methods is withdrawal. And how can the religious say that that's the thing to do? That you're allowed to do that when the Bible is just screams about that.
Does it?
Spilling the seed into
Oh,
the
Spilling the
sand.
seed, my
Yeah.
God, yeah, that's killing. I mean,
No, but
they'll
you're
kill
missing
you
the
for
point
spilling
there.
the
well,
seed.
because at some point, at least some of the early theologians thought that sperm was actually little babies. they didn't think the egg mattered at all. They thought literally you had little tiny shrunk down miniature.
Big surprise.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
Women
That
once
was why-
again
that
were
was
just
why-
there to be
Oh
repositories.
yeah, they're just the
Men had
repository,
all
right.
the.
That's
yeah.
why the Catholic Church
Big
was against
shock.
masturbation, because it was literally
wasting-
abortion. You
Well,
were
then
killing
why
a bunch
didn't
of
they
babies.
put all of those wet dream people to sleep?
That probably is why, because, I wasn't too clear about that, other than that they were, like sexist, but, the ancients, like in ancient Rome and in Greece, they all thought that producing a baby was really from the father, and I wonder if that's, because it never was totally explained.
But the
I'm
child,
pretty sure that that's the case.
I'll bet that they thought that they
Like the
implanted
Thomas
the
Aquinas
little
kind of-
baby in the woman's womb, and it
Yeah.
was
That
their,
makes sense.
yeah, they were saying that the
Right.
father was the the genesis.
Well,
of
just
the
like
child.
planting a seed, in the earth, right?
the
earth, yeah.
It's it doesn't really matter which stretch of earth, right?
Yeah.
It's the seed that's got everything in it.
but,
They-
but
they
they would
didn't
look
see-
like the mother. The child might look like the mother. How could that possibly be?
But you'd have to think genetically for that, right? Now you're thinking about genes being passed on. They didn't have that
Yeah.
concept either.
But so they said it's just a coincidence that he has
Or the
his mother's
influence of
eyes?
the environment.
Or-
It's
I don't know what
environment
they
of her
said
womb
about
that
things like
he
that, but
picked up the.
there are scientific.
Somehow
Yeah, I
blue
call it-
eyes were absorbed through the womb
Through the
if
womb.
dad didn't
There are
have blue
scientific
eyes.
things said that, there are scientific treatises that, the physicians of the time wrote, and the philosophers, they all felt that the man was responsible for the conception.
It
God
wasn't
can
until
make him look
Mendel
like anything.
that Mendel was noticing that traits seemed to be passed on.
Isn't that
right?
incredible?
And look how
We're
late that was,
1800s,
though.
right?
That was the
I mean,
1800s?
Yeah.
Just think about how late
I'd like
that
to talk
was.
more about
that-
Yeah.
But
And people didn't pay attention to that for a long time either. The Mendel stuff.
yeah, he was unknown.
Yeah.
A lot of what you said, I was new to, but I'm still old enough to remember what was going on in the 70s, about the abortion debate and also the anti-pornography. And, the religious right had kind of a backlash, late 70s and certainly by the time Reagan was elected, against, abortion, against pornography. Edwin Meese, he introduced legislation to try and ban the selling of Playboy magazine in the stores.
Right.
They did not want it in the 7-Elevens, and they tried to pass a law to say we're not going to allow this. This is obscene.
Yes.
We're not going to allow
Well, Hugh
Within our
Hefner was
lifetime.
writing
Because
really
kids-
great essays at the time on sexual freedom and what have you.
it. Yeah,
They were actually intelligent. I remember reading them when I was young. It was quite amazing.
yeah, and no matter what you think about the magazine, he was a pioneer,
Yeah,
and
he
he
really
challenged
was.
the law.
And he did it much less crudely than
Yeah.
who was the other guy?
Hustler, Larry Flint.
Yeah.
Larry Flint, yeah.
Well, that's a matter of taste, but what I wanted.
No, if you read Larry Flint and you
Oh, I
read
have.
the two,
They have words
he's
in there?
much better writer.
Oh, in terms of
After- oh, yeah.
literature.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to deny
Yeah,
that.
I can remember being so impressed when I was young, I mean, it was,
But Ralph Ginsberg also was a pioneer, and he didn't do porn. He did erotica. He wrote stories and published stories,
Right.
and he spent 6 months in jail in the '60s for obscenity.
I
And so he
forgot
was
all
another
that.
one of those
You're
who-
right.
Pioneered this. We had to go to the Supreme Court to say, for the first time, it was in the eyes of the community standards instead of an arbitrary standard.
Yeah.
Which what Comstock was saying, if it's obscene because I say it's so.
Yeah,
Right, it
I mean,
is.
I just decided
Whereas
it's
the Supreme Court finally ruled sometime in the late '60s, mid '60s, that no, It's the community standards decides whether it's
That's
obscene or
kind of
sin.
bad too, though. I
So
mean,
it's
you
not
know, it's
absolute,
better
it's
than it
relative.
was.
Well, by
Right.
then the consumer culture was so alive, people were buying this, and so it wasn't insulting to the community standards of what they were buying, right? They were,
You know,
they were
I-
selling Playboy.
As a young woman, though, I mean, I can remember, you know, that you had to get smuggled copies of Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn. You couldn't buy them.
Was that because it was imported?
No, it was because, you know, they were like not allowed in the United States.
So that
I
was
mean, there was pornography.
that was in the 50s.
By the way, he isn't such a great writer.
No.
The books weren't that exciting once we were able to get our hands on them. But the idea was, yeah.
When
I
was it?
remember
When
the
was
Lady
that, Mary?
Chatterley's
I was gonna
Lover
say,
trial.
Lady Chatterley's Lover was.
Yeah.
Was that the 50s?
Then
or the
Lolita.
60s?
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
the 50s or the
Yeah.
60s. You
So
know?
prior to that, was
Fifties,
the Bible
sixties.
the only pornography you could get?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Song of Solomon.
Exactly. No, I mean there were a lot of things that you couldn't buy.
Yeah.
You know, like over the counter. You couldn't buy
Wow.
any of the Marquis de Sade and other lousy stuff. You know,
Yeah.
I mean that's really boring
But
after a while.
you know, it was the commercial pornographers that actually, you know, won the day for the free
Yeah.
speech. Even
Yeah.
though, you know, you may say, well, that what they were doing was smutty. Nevertheless, they were the ones that had the money that could challenge these things.
That's a good point.
This period of American history, do you think that do we go through the cycles? Was there something about the late 19th century that was some cyclical thing that was continuing, you know, from the founding of the nation, or was this just a one-time thing that you can't really trace to any kind of cycle?
No, it was cyclical because people had picked up Tom Paine's works again by about 1917 or so.
You mean about freedom?
Yeah, yeah. So it's cyclical. I'm just hoping that the trend right now to secularism growing is not going to be cyclical, and we're going to have another, you know, religious reawakening.
Right,
or
because there's been a
whatever.
bunch of those revivals,
Yeah.
like
That's
the-
what's
right.
frightening. Yeah,
Over
yeah.
time.
I'm hoping that it's strong enough now that we won't.
It also sounded, though, I got the impression that a lot of this, like you said, was driven by the abolitionist movement. That the graphic nature of how awful slavery was part of what made people more sensitive to social injustice in general.
That is a very good point. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Because a lot of it did start with their objections to slavery and seemed to grow.
Well, it's not a far leap based on how women are treated at the time to go from
Right.
slavery to women are
Right.
just one step above.
Women
yeah.
as chattel are not
Yeah.
that much better than slaves.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like it's not a stretch to see how they progress to women's
Yeah.
rights from there.
I'm just hoping that our stretch of good luck or whatever right now is going to continue. I just worry about
Yeah.
another.
Well, it is amazing to think how recently these things have changed.
Yeah. Yeah, we had
Scary.
we had a small awakening. Remember about the time that you know, Bush and everybody got in that silly Congress.
And Tipper Gore and her.
Yeah, yeah, and then all of a sudden, you know, now we've moved, you know, beyond that again.
But you know, who are the voices in this area, you know, of sexual freedom? Who are the speakers? Who are the people that are the outspoken advocates for sex education, for total access to birth control? I mean, do we really have those people?
Well, I think, yeah, they're spread out now. I mean, you know, they're head of different organizations.
Because even the curriculum, you know, the education curriculum is still very limited
Yeah.
in Michigan. They,
And
Yeah.
very optional, right?
Yeah,
Make people
yeah.
opt out.
well, they can opt out,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you know, that should be the case in my opinion. But it's still set to begin with at the state level of what you can and cannot teach.
Right.
And I'm not current on what they can say about birth control or about condoms or anything like that, but from what I hear, it's still pretty limited. Did you come across like anyone that was just trying to educate like young people about sex, or was it all confined to education about birth control?
Well, no, they were, those publications weren't just information about birth control, they were trying to educate people about sex.
About how to
In
have
general, and
sex
that
or
it was
about.
enjoyable for women, I mean, even Margaret Sanger was trying to, do that.
Yeah, I would love to get my hands on some of those original materials and just.
It's online.
Gail
Well,
probably.
actually, she was very, influenced by Havelock Ellis, and I don't know if his things are still in print, but I remember reading those when I was younger, some of his works.
Was it any good, or was it very
Well,
so basic as
now
not to-
it would seem very, like out of date and what have you, like Freud does in a lot of ways. But at that time, that was still breakthroughs, like in the 50s and
Yeah.
60s.
Because traditionally, and I know this from my father, it's incredible, is that the couple that was about to get married would be counseled by the clergy. In my case, my father was a rabbi, so he would have a separate room, in the house, and they would go and he would counsel them on their premarital counseling. I don't know what he would say, but anyway, that would come up. There would be something, as I understood, there would be something about the sexual life of the man and the woman. I don't know what that would be, but the priest did the same thing. You'd have to go. Before you get married in the Catholic Church, you'd have to go and have private sessions with the priest on the duties of the
That is
man,
just so creepy.
the duties of the woman.
Well, now, Gary Wills, who writes like great political books, but he's a Catholic and still is a practicing Catholic, but he really criticizes the church in very, like interesting and intellectual ways. But anyway, he recalls that he and his wife were part of those counseling sessions, and it was they were young and they didn't contradict the priest, but they would giggle, a lot of the couples behind the priest's back, because a lot of these couples were being taught that women don't enjoy sex. That they don't
And
really
since they
have
were already
sexual
having
feelings.
sex and proving
I
that
have no
difference.
idea what they were telling these people. I mean,
Well,
I
Well,
can't
if you're gonna learn
imagine
about
that.
sex, you
Yeah.
want to learn it from a priest.
yeah, right, because he knows
but
all
that's
about
where
it.
you
Oh,
would
yeah.
get your sex education.
But that's,
Right.
well, I
That's
guess
crazy.
they weren't though at all. I
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
thought it
well,
was,
that's
they
the
thought
sad
it was
part.
silly, but I wonder if some people that took it seriously.
Oh, I'm sure there were.
Yes.
Of course
Yeah.
there were.
Generations.
Much to their disadvantage.
Generations.
Yeah.
Right.